TIFU by accidentally getting locked in a sensory deprivation tank overnight. So this happened a couple of weeks ago, but I've only just started being able to laugh about it instead of curling into a shame ball. Let me set the scene. I'm a 32-year-old guy, recently divorced, trying all the find yourself after heartbreak things people suggest. Journaling, hiking, yoga, lasted 2 classes, and yes, a Groupon-fueled dive into the world of wellness experiences. That's how I ended up in a small but weirdly fancy sensory deprivation spa on the edge of town. For those who don't know, a sensory deprivation tank is basically a futuristic coffin filled with salty water at body temperature, where you float in pitch darkness with no sound, no light, and no stimulus. It's supposed to reset your brain. I thought, hey, sounds like a peaceful way to forget that my ex-wife is now dating the dude who DJ'd our wedding. I booked the last session of the day, a 90-minute float at 9 p.m. The spa is run by this super chill woman named Kalea, of course, who gives me the lowdown in her yoga voice. No phones, shower before and after, don't freak out in the dark, etc. She mentions that the staff leaves around 10 o'clock since it's a small business, but the tanks are on timers and shut off the lights and filtration after the session ends. She reassures me the front door auto-locks behind her, but I'll be fine because the inside door stays open and I can leave anytime. Alright, I strip down, shower, and get into the tank. At first, it's weirdly amazing. The water's the perfect temperature, and when you finally settle in, it's like your body disappears. I'm having deep thoughts about forgiveness, maybe composing a few mental haikus, when I start to drift into what feels like the pre-sleep zone. And then nothing. No timer alarm. No lights. Just continued nothingness. At some point I realize it has to have been more than 90 minutes. My skin's pruning, my thoughts are looping, and my neck hurts. I sit up. Still pitch black. I feel my way out of the tank like a blind mole person and make it to the shower. Still no lights. Weird. Maybe the power's out? I get dressed by the light of my phone, except my phone is in the lobby locker, which is now behind a closed door. I open the door to the main lobby. Everything is dark. Front door? Locked. Staff? Gone. Music? Silent. That's when the reality hits me. I've been locked inside a spa overnight. In wet swim trunks. I try the door again. Nothing. I bang on the glass, hoping a kind stranger is wandering around this sketchy industrial plaza at midnight. Nope. The whole building is closed. I start opening random cabinets hoping for a key, a phone, something. I find herbal teas, hundreds of tea candles, a singing bowl, and a small plastic skeleton labeled Chakra Carl. Useless. I check the time on the wall clock. 1:37 a.m. So here I am, locked inside a Zen spa with no phone, no way out, and nothing but robe options and Buddha statues for company. My brain starts to spiral. What if I'm stuck until morning? What if the tank resets and some early bird customer walks in on me curled on the lobby couch like Gollum? I spend about 30 minutes trying to pick the lock with a bobby pin I found in the lost and found. Spoiler, sensory deprivation spas are not full of hairpins. I finally accept my fate, make a fort out of yoga mats and towels, and try to sleep. But the spa isn't quiet anymore. Now that I'm not in the tank, I notice all these weird mechanical noises. The filtration systems make this gurgling demon sound every 20 minutes. One of the water pipes clinks like someone's knocking. There's also this inexplicable chime that goes off every hour, like I'm being haunted by a wind-powered xylophone. I doze off around 4 a.m. and wake up freezing at dawn, to the sound of birds chirping and the horrifying realization that someone is unlocking the front door. It's Kalea. Her scream scares the actual soul out of me. She drops her smoothie, sees me in a robe and bedhead emerging from the shadows of the towel pile, and backs into the reception desk like she's about to call the cops. It takes a minute before I can explain what happened. She's mortified. Apparently, she assumed I had left because I never came back to the lobby. I explain I must have fallen asleep in the tank and she says, "But the lights go on and the pump starts. Didn't you hear it?" I assure her I must be too zen and slept through the exit alarm. She apologizes 100 times and offers me 3 free float sessions and a voucher for their infrared sauna. I accept because, honestly, it's a good deal. But I also insist they put in a system that confirms all customers have left before locking up, and maybe, I don't know, not schedule people after closing hours. On my way out, I retrieve my phone, which has 11 missed calls and 3 voicemails. One is from my brother asking if I'm still alive, another from my ex, of all people, saying she heard I was trying new age stuff and to be careful, and one from the spa owner, left at 6 a.m., saying, I heard about the incident, please don't sue us. Anyway, I'm alive. I'm never doing a float session without an exit buddy again. And I've started locking my bedroom door from the inside, just in case my aura gets stuck in another alternate dimension. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. TIFU by pretending to be fluent in German to impress my boss, and ending up on a live radio interview in Berlin. So, this happened about 3 weeks ago, and the fallout is still slowly unfurling like a cursed scroll. For context, I, 29M, work for a mid-sized marketing firm in Chicago. We recently landed a massive German client. Huge. Think international beverage conglomerate with more lawyers than employees. My boss, Karen, yes, really, is the kind of person who praises go-getters and has probably read the 48 Laws of Power 3 times without understanding it's not an instruction manual. Now, I took 2 years of German in college because I was trying to date this goth girl who said Rammstein lyrics were spiritually prophetic or something. The relationship didn't last past sophomore year, and neither did my German skills. But when Karen asked the team if anyone spoke the language, some devil on my shoulder whispered, "What could go wrong?" I raised my hand. "Oh, thank God, Mason," Karen said, eyes gleaming. "We need someone on this campaign who can communicate directly with the Berlin team. You'll be a huge asset." And just like that, I was the official German liaison. At first, I figured I could skate by using Google Translate and avoiding direct conversations. Most emails were in English anyway. I became a wizard of canned phrases and professional-sounding vagueness. Danke für Ihr Geduld became my mantra. It was working. Until it wasn't. Fast forward to last month. Our campaign was a hit, and the client loved it so much they wanted someone to speak on Berlin's biggest business radio show. About the partnership. Live. In German. I tried to back out. I told Karen I had a scheduling conflict and maybe we should send someone else. She wasn't having it. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Mason. The CEO will be listening. Do this, and you're basically set for the year-end bonus. Plus," she said, lowering her voice like a conspiracy theorist, "I think they're testing us. Like, to see if we can be truly international." The pressure broke me. I agreed. I had 1 week to prepare. I went full immersion mode. Downloaded Duolingo, watched hours of German YouTube videos, listened to German podcasts during my commute. I even tried shadowing my neighbor's elderly dachshund during their walks just to hear natural speech. I was a man possessed, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for being on live radio with a host who spoke faster than a machine gun and laughed like he'd snorted pure joy. The interview started okay. I'd scripted a few answers, greeted the host, thanked him for the opportunity. I was clinging to my memorized sentences like a drowning man to driftwood. But then he asked me a question I didn't understand. At all. It was long, and full of words I'm 90% sure aren't real. Like, what the hell is Verbraucherinteressen? Is that a type of sausage? I panicked. My brain completely short-circuited. And instead of asking him to repeat the question, or switching to English like a sane person, I just said, "Ja, absolut," and nodded like an idiot. His face lit up. "Wirklich? Sie meinen, dass die Campaign absichtlich die regionalen Dialekte ehemaligen DDR parodiert?" I blinked. Nodded again. He burst out laughing. The producer laughed. The other guests laughed. My translator, who was standing off camera for emergencies, had the most horrified expression I've ever seen. Like, I'd confessed to a war crime. It turns out, and I found this out after the interview, that I had enthusiastically agreed that our campaign was a deliberate parody of East German regional dialects, which is apparently a sensitive subject. Like, historically sensitive. Political. Possibly offensive. The next day, our German client emailed us expressing surprise and confusion at our representative's comments. Karen looked like she aged 5 years reading it. I got pulled into a meeting with HR and legal where they asked, very calmly, if I had any idea what I was saying. I confessed. All of it. The fake fluency. The bluffing. The Duolingo crash course. Karen didn't say a word during the whole thing. Just stared at me with the dead eyes of someone watching a train derail in slow motion. The client eventually forgave us, after 1,000 apologies and a very real German-speaking colleague flying to Berlin to do damage control. I'm still employed, somehow, but I've been removed from all international projects. I now spend most of my days building PowerPoints and naming new soda flavors like Citrus Sing and Berry Havoc. Every time I hear German now, even in a movie, I break out in cold sweat. And to this day, my coworkers still greet me with a hearty Guten Tag, Mason, followed by loud, fake German that sounds like a World War II movie. And the worst part? That stupid Duolingo owl still reminds me daily that I'm on a 27-day streak. This happened about 4 years ago, but it still haunts me on quiet nights. So I, 23M at the time, had this best friend, Jeremy, 22M. We were close since freshman year of college, same dorm, bonded over video games, mutual introversion, and our collective lack of luck with dating. Jeremy was quiet, smart, sarcastic in a way that only made sense if you knew him. We drifted a bit after graduation but kept in touch. One day, he called me out of nowhere and asked for a massive favor. Jeremy had moved back to his hometown after college, a smallish conservative town in upstate New York. Turns out he was gay and had been closeted the whole time we were in college. I had no idea. His plan was to come out to his family at his sister's wedding, and he wanted to soften the blow by showing up with a boyfriend. Someone safe, someone who wouldn't flinch if things got ugly. I was honored, nervous, and very single, so I said yes. I figured this would be a quiet dinner with his immediate family, some awkward eye contact, maybe one dramatic exit. What he failed to mention until 2 days before the trip was that his entire extended family, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, would be staying in a giant rented farmhouse for the wedding weekend. And we were sharing a room, with one bed. Still, I doubled down. We road-tripped together to this farm town estate, stopped at a Target halfway to buy couple clothes, his idea, not mine, and rehearsed our backstory on the drive like it was a Broadway play. We'd met at a trivia night, bonded over a mutual love of David Bowie and eggplant parm. We had a song. We even practiced a safe word in case things got bad, and I needed to bail. The word was cabbage. Don't ask why. The first day went suspiciously well. His parents were quiet but polite. His sister gave me a wink and whispered. Took him long enough, and most of his cousins were more interested in grilling me about my non-existent job in urban sustainability than the fact I was allegedly dating their cousin. We pulled it off. Too well. That night, Jeremy and I were lying in our shared bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling like 2 kids at camp. I said, "This is going easier than I thought." He said, "Yeah, maybe too easy. Foreshadowing is a bitch." Day 2, the wedding day, was when it all unraveled. It started when his Aunt Marie pulled me aside during brunch. "You seem sweet," she said, gripping my wrist like a mafia don. "But I'm gonna be honest. I don't buy it." I laughed. Bad move. I know a faker when I see one. Jeremy doesn't bring anyone home for 4 years, and suddenly he shows up with a trivia-loving boyfriend who knows how to use an espresso machine and packs gluten-free snacks? You think I don't notice things? I try to play it cool. I'm just here to support Jeremy. She narrowed her eyes. You're gonna break his heart. I was still processing the fact that I'd been accused of being too good at pretending to be gay when the real catastrophe began. Turns out, Jeremy's second cousin Lydia was at the wedding. I had met Lydia once before, at a college party our sophomore year. We had drunkenly made out in someone's laundry room. I hadn't thought about it in years. She had. She cornered me by the barn during cocktail hour, tipsy and glowing in this rose-colored dress, and whispered, "Wow. Small world." I laughed nervously. "Definitely. You're with Jeremy now?" I nodded. "That's recent," she asked, biting her lip. I said, "Uh-huh." She stared at me. "So you weren't gay in college?" I panicked. I was figuring things out. She leaned in. "So, what you're saying is you're bi?" I had no idea where this was going. I said, "Sure." And then she kissed me. Right there. In full view of Jeremy's Uncle Rick and at least one ring bearer. I backed away fast, mumbling something about sangria, and practically sprinted back to the house. Jeremy was already there, sitting on the porch swing with the expression of someone who just stepped in something awful. "I saw Lydia," he said. "Yup," I said. "She kissed you." "Yup." "And Uncle Rick saw." "Yup." Long silence. Then Jeremy stood up, laughed once, and said, "Well, this is F*** edition." And then he walked straight into the house. By the time I caught up, it was chaos. Aunt Marie had taken my kiss with Lydia as confirmation of her faker theory and was loudly telling anyone who would listen that Jeremy had hired an escort to fake a relationship. Jeremy's mom was crying in the pantry. His sister was trying to calm down their dad, who was red-faced and muttering about goddamn theater people. The ring bearer was yelling liar and throwing cherry tomatoes at me. I tried to defend myself. I really did. But it turns out, when you're caught making out with a woman at a gay wedding reveal party, your credibility tanks fast. Jeremy wouldn't talk to me for the rest of the night. I ended up sleeping in the laundry room. The next morning, we drove home in silence. About halfway through New Jersey, Jeremy finally said, "I shouldn't have asked you." I said, "I shouldn't have kissed your cousin." We both laughed, a little broken. We didn't talk much for a few months after that. The fallout with his family was rough. Some relationships recovered, some didn't. Eventually, he came out for real, no fake boyfriends, no Target wardrobe. Just him. Brave and alone. We reconnected about a year later, awkward and careful at first, then better. He forgave me. I forgave him. We never talked about the bed sharing or the trivia night or the cabbage code. He has a real boyfriend now. His name's Carlos. He's a chef. They have a dog named Zelda. I'm genuinely happy for him. But every now and then, I get a text from an unknown number that just says liar followed by a tomato emoji. I'm 80% sure it's the ring bearer. Company.com_ and a group of volunteer listeners, that's what they called us, would take turns responding. It wasn't therapy, more like a peer support thing. HR would screen the messages first for legal or safety stuff, then assign them randomly to a listener. I signed up because I figured it'd be like giving advice on Reddit, and I like helping people. The anonymity made it feel chill. You never knew who you were writing to, and they never knew who you were either. I got a few easy ones at first, stuff like, "I think my manager doesn't like me," or "How do I set boundaries with my coworker who won't stop humming?" I replied with thoughtful, empathetic answers, maybe too thoughtful. One of the other volunteers even messaged me, joking that my responses read like I was trying to get a Pulitzer in advice giving. Then I got an email from someone we'll call Shadow Seeker. Their messages were different. They weren't asking about boundaries or coffee machine etiquette. They were deep, existential. At first, it was about burnout. What do you do when you're in charge and everyone expects you to have answers, but you have no clue what you're doing? Then it got more personal. I don't think my spouse likes me anymore, and I stay up all night, sometimes just refreshing my inbox, hoping for something that feels meaningful. I was shaken, honestly. I took my time responding. I poured a lot into those replies, suggesting they try journaling, gently recommending they talk to a real therapist, reminding them that being in charge doesn't mean being perfect. They always replied. Every time. They said they couldn't talk to anyone else, that I was the only one who felt real. Weeks went by. Months. It became a routine. Every Thursday night, I'd get a new message from Shadow Seeker. And every Friday, I'd craft a long, careful response. I started looking forward to it in a strange way. It felt meaningful, intimate. I'd started to guess things about them. Maybe they were in upper management, based on how they talked about company image and leadership optics. I figured they were in their late 40s, maybe male. Married, unhappy, lonely. Then came the email. This time, the message was titled Confession. I opened it like I always did, sipping tea and half distracted by Spotify. It said, "I think I'm falling in love with the person behind these emails. I don't know your name, or your face, or if we've ever even passed each other in the hallway. But I wait all week to hear from you. You make me feel seen in a way I haven't felt in years. I'm terrified this will break whatever spell we're under. But I had to say it. Thank you. I hope you don't hate me for it." My mouth went dry. I stared at the screen, trying to process. I didn't feel angry, just disoriented. This was still anonymous, still technically professional, but it had taken a sharp left into emotional intimacy. I didn't know what to say. So I logged out and decided I'd sleep on it. The next day at work, I was still rattled. I walked into the office kitchen to get coffee and ran into our CEO. Let's call him Martin. He's usually aloof, the kind of guy who nods at you like he's only halfway sure you work there. But that day he smiled.
"Hey," he said.
"Hope you're doing well." It wasn't weird on its own, but there was something in the way he said it, something knowing.
His tone had changed. Softer.
I must have looked surprised because he added, "By the way, I've been really impressed with some of the company culture stuff lately. It's good to see people looking out for each other." I mumbled something like, "Yeah, it's been cool," and shuffled away. That night, I reread every message Shadow Seeker had sent. I noticed things I'd missed before, references to company events only upper execs would attend, a throwaway comment about stepping off the board for mental health reasons, and one message that said, "Sometimes I just stare at that stupid framed quote in my office that says leaders eat last and want to throw it out the window." I'd seen that quote before. In Martin's office. That's when it hit me. Shadow Seeker was Martin. My boss. The CEO. The man who signs my paychecks. And I had, unknowingly, become his anonymous emotional lifeline. For 6 freaking months. I went into a spiral. Every email I'd written to him, every "you're enough and you don't have to carry it alone," came rushing back to me with the added horror of knowing I had been low-key therapizing the person who runs my life. What if he figured out who I was? Had I said anything that could reveal me? I started rereading my own emails like a detective trying to find fingerprints. And then it got worse. At our next all-hands meeting, Martin gave a short speech about gratitude and resilience. He looked out over the room and said, "Sometimes the person who helps you most is someone you've never really met. If you're out there, thank you." Our eyes met. For a second too long. I felt my soul try to escape through my spine. Now I live in constant fear. I don't know if he knows it's me. Maybe he just suspects. Maybe he doesn't want to know. But every time I see him, there's this tension in the air, like we're both pretending we're not part of some weird emotional affair conducted entirely through company-sanctioned anonymous emails. I've stopped replying to Shadow Seeker. I said I needed a break from volunteering, citing burnout. HR said they understood. But I still check the inbox sometimes. And there's always a message from him, waiting. "Are you still there? Did I say something wrong? I miss you. I don't know what to do. I can't ghost the CEO. But I can't keep being his secret therapist either." TIFU by becoming my boss's emotional support ghostwriter. TIFU by accidentally joining a cult thinking it was a startup incubator. So, this happened about a year ago, but it still haunts my group chats. I, 26M, had just quit my job at a mid-sized tech company after burning out hard. I'd spent 5 years writing back-end code for a SaaS product that helped Fortune 500 companies track employee lunch breaks more efficiently, and if that sounds soul-crushing, it absolutely was. I took a few months to travel, recharge, and soul-search. During that time, I started toying with an idea for a startup, some combination of AI, productivity tracking, and social accountability. Basically, a digital co-working app that used webcam monitoring and AI-generated reminders to keep you on task, like a friendly but slightly dystopian boss in the cloud. I mentioned the idea on a Slack community for indie hackers, and, to my surprise, I got a DM from someone named Tobias. His message was super enthusiastic. He said he was part of a small, invite-only startup incubator/intentional community based in the Pacific Northwest. They helped people like me turn ideas into full-fledged startups, free of the distractions of modern life. It was all very off-the-grid, deep work, nature hustle hybrid. At first I was skeptical, but the site he linked me to looked slick. Their testimonials were all from folks who'd gone on to build successful SaaS products, subscription services, even a crypto wallet that had been acquired. Their photos showed modern A-frame cabins, big communal tables, and lots of laptops beside mugs of herbal tea. Think, WeWork meets Walden Pond. I hopped on a Zoom call with Tobias and a few of his co-founders. Everyone seemed chill, if a little intense. Lots of phrases like flow state, manifesting outcomes, and zero latency collaboration. I was invited to join a 2-month residency. No fee, just a commitment to contribute to the community, help out with cooking and maintenance, and work on my project full-time. I just had to get myself there. So I packed in my hatchback, kissed city life goodbye, and drove 6 hours into the woods. The compound, there's really no other word for it, was beautiful. 30 acres of forest, yurts, and one main lodge with shared workspaces, a communal kitchen, and a meditation dome. I was assigned a converted shipping container with a futon, a desk, and a window that looked out on a creek. The first few days were actually great. The food was vegan and surprisingly good. Everyone was incredibly welcoming. Morning yoga, deep work blocks, community dinners, and something called Night Circle, which was mostly people sharing wins and challenges while drinking kombucha. But around week 2, things got weird. I noticed people started referring to Tobias not by his name, but as the Bridge. At first, I thought it was a joke.
Nope.
They legit called him the Bridge. As in, the Bridge says we're harvesting too much energy from the digital realm lately. We need to recenter. I figured it was just a quirky nickname, like a founder thing. Tech bros love their titles. But then came the chance. Every morning before yoga, instead of a standard breathing exercise, we'd synchronize intentions, which meant standing in a circle with hands outstretched while repeating affirmations like, I surrender my ego to the flow of emergence. If you didn't say it with conviction, someone would gently touch your shoulder and whisper a line. Then Tobias/the Bridge announced we'd be entering a beta phase of community structure, where roles were determined not by skills, but by energetic resonance. I was reassigned from product dev to ether conduit, which turned out to mean scrubbing compost toilets and holding space for anyone experiencing energetic disruption. I asked if that meant therapy. They said no. Therapy implies brokenness. We don't diagnose. We recalibrate. At dinner one night, I made a joke about returning to civilization with a beard and a 1,000-yard stare. Total silence. One guy put down his spoon and said, language like that severs the weave. Another nodded solemnly. You're creating a scarcity loop. Okay. I started trying to extricate myself, but it turns out that's not so easy when you're 40 miles from cell service, and the only working vehicle is an old biodiesel, then called the Vessel, which only the Bridge was allowed to drive. When I brought up leaving, Tobias gave me a long look and said, the seed doesn't decide when to sprout. The soil does. Later that night, I found that my laptop and phone had been moved from my room to a digital detox locker. My password was changed. That was the moment I realized I wasn't in a startup accelerator. I was in a cult. I planned my escape over the next 2 days. I borrowed a map from the kitchen and memorized the logging roads I'd need to take to reach the highway. Then, during a nightly resonance bonfire, I pretended to have a stomach ache, slipped away from the circle, and sprinted through the woods with nothing but a flashlight, a protein bar, and a copy of the 4-Hour Workweek I'd been ironically reading. It took me 5 hours of hiking, some tears, and a lucky hitchhike from a very confused forest ranger to make it back to a gas station with a payphone. I called my sister. She thought I'd joined a commune on purpose. When I explained, she said, wait, like you didn't know it was a cult? It's been a year. I'm back in the city, working for a company that sells novelty Zoom backgrounds. It's dull but predictable. I still get postcards from some of the people I met there. One guy left and now runs a chicken sanctuary. Another became a tantric breath coach. I never heard from Tobias again. But every now and then, when I'm staring at my Slack feed or writing a sprint retrospective, I find myself missing the quiet of the forest, the sound of wind through the trees, and then I remember the phrase, surrender your ego to the flow of emergence, and shiver. I guess the startup world and cults aren't always that different after all. TIFU by volunteering to help my girlfriend's dad with a simple project and almost getting arrested for arson. So this happened last weekend, and I'm still getting roasted by everyone involved. For context, I, 28M, have been dating my girlfriend Kayla, 27F, for about a year and a half. Things are going great, and I've recently started spending more time with her family. Her dad, Mike, is this rugged, fix-it-yourself kind of guy who can build a shed from scratch or rewire a house blindfolded. He's intimidating, but not in a bad way, just a dude who always seems like he knows exactly what he's doing. I, on the other hand, am a desk jockey with a marketing job, soft hands, and zero practical skills. Anyway, last Friday, Kayla casually mentions that her dad is redoing the fire pit in their backyard and asked if I wanted to help out. Just some manual labor, she said. He just needs an extra set of hands. I thought it'd be a good opportunity to impress the man and maybe convince him that I'm not totally useless. So I said yes. Saturday rolls around and I show up at their place wearing my best attempt at outdoor work clothes, old jeans and a hoodie I didn't mind ruining. Mike is already out back, surrounded by bricks, tools, a wheelbarrow full of sand, and what looks like a flamethrower. That last one threw me a bit. What's the fire thing for? Mike, completely deadpan, we're gonna burn out the old pit. Clear the ground.
Cool, I guess.
I didn't want to seem like a wimp, so I didn't ask questions. The plan, as I understood it, was to demolish the old fire pit, which was made of cheap stone, burn out the leftover debris, then start laying the base for the new one. So far, so good. We knock out the old stones, shovel away the debris, and then Mike hands me the flamethrower. Mike, just torch the center. Get it real hot, so we can clear it faster. Me, are you sure? Mike, you scared of fire? I was, in fact, scared of fire. But I just laughed and said, nope. I squeeze the trigger and unleash what can only be described as a mini inferno. It was kind of exhilarating, not gonna lie. We both take turns scorching the pit until the soil is blackened and smoldering. This is when the trouble begins. Unbeknownst to either of us, a family of squirrels had made a home in the nearby woodpile. When the fire got going, two of them freaked out and bolted, one across the yard and another up the tree next to the house. Mike didn't see them, but I did, and in the chaos I ended up accidentally swinging the flamethrower toward the base of the tree. Just a quick burst. The tree catches. Not a little bit. Like actually catches fire. I scream, drop the flamethrower, which is still hissing, and Mike yells something unintelligible before grabbing a hose. The problem is that the hose is buried under a pile of garden tools, and the nozzle isn't even attached. By the time we get water flowing, the tree's lower branches are full-on flaming, and the heat has started to warp the plastic siding on the house. Kayla and her mom come running out in full panic mode. Mike finally douses the tree enough to smother the flames, but there's smoke everywhere and the whole backyard smells like a barbecue gone wrong. Neighbors have come out to see what's happening, and someone rightfully called the fire department. So now imagine me, standing in a scorched crater with soot on my face, holding a half-melted flamethrower like a war criminal when the fire truck rolls up. Firefighter. What the hell happened here? Mike. A home improvement. They're not amused. One of them pulls me aside and starts asking questions. I try to explain the squirrel-slash-tree-slash-flamethrower sequence without sounding like a lunatic, but the more I talk, the more it sounds like a rejected cartoon plot. They ultimately let us off with a very stern warning and tell Mike he's not allowed to use that particular torch setup without a permit. I guess it was technically classified as a commercial-grade torch or something. There's a fine involved, which Mike insists on paying, and I find out later that the tree had to be trimmed by a professional because the top was still smoldering hours later. The best part? Kayla's little cousin was inside watching from the upstairs window the whole time and apparently told her parents. Uncle Mike and Kayla's boyfriend were fighting the devil in the backyard. That somehow turned into the family nickname for me, Lucifer. It's been a week and I've already been gifted 3 bags of marshmallows, a tiny fire extinguisher, and a kid's firefighter helmet. Kayla thinks it's hilarious. Mike has not stopped calling me Blazer. I was trying to impress the man. Instead, I nearly lit his house on fire and became an inside joke for an entire extended family. TIFU by trying to impress my girlfriend's dad with a homemade pizza and accidentally drugging the entire family. This happened a couple of weeks ago, and I'm only just emotionally recovered enough to share it. I, 29M, have been dating my girlfriend Emma, 27F, for just over a year, and things have been going really well. So well, in fact, that she invited me to spend a weekend at her parents' lake house in Michigan to meet her family for the first time. It was supposed to be chill. Just her mom, dad, younger brother, and me. I was thrilled and just a little terrified. Naturally, I wanted to make a good impression. Now, her dad is a retired Navy guy. Thinks he's Gordon Ramsay, hates anything that's not made from scratch, and apparently has a borderline religious obsession with pizza. Emma told me that if I really wanted to win him over, I should try cooking. I like cooking and I'm decent at it, so I volunteered to make homemade pizzas on Saturday night. To add some flair, I decided to bring my own dough and a few special toppings. I prepped the dough at home the night before we left, vacuum sealed it, and packed it in the cooler. I also brought a little jar of herb-infused olive oil that I'd made weeks ago and totally forgot about. Let's pause here. I live in Denver. Weed is legal in Denver. And a few months ago, my roommate thought it'd be hilarious to infuse a bottle of extra virgin olive oil with cannabis for fun pasta nights. Long story short, I had 2 similar-looking bottles in the pantry. One infused, one not. Guess which one made it into the cooler?
Yeah.
So we're up at the lake house, Saturday rolls around, and I'm feeling great. The sun's out, the vibes are perfect, and I'm in the kitchen with her dad, bonding over dough stretching techniques. Everything is going perfectly. I even hear him say, "You know, this kid might not be useless after all," which is apparently the highest form of praise he gives. I drizzle some of my herb oil over the crusts before baking. Just a little. Just enough for flavor. I made 4 pizzas, each with different toppings. Everyone loved them. Her mom kept saying how flavorful it was, and her brother ate 5 slices in under 10 minutes. Her dad even said it was the best homemade crust he'd had outside of Sicily. About 45 minutes later, things started getting weird. Her mom started giggling uncontrollably at a bird outside the window. Her brother got up, wandered into the kitchen, opened the fridge, stared at a stick of butter like it held the secrets of the universe, and then said, "Whoa," very slowly. Emma asked me if the room was always this melty. Her dad, her ex-Navy, no-nonsense, meat and potatoes dad, was lying on the floor in the living room, completely still, whispering to the ceiling, "There is no crust, only sauce." That's when it hit me. I ran into the kitchen, pulled out the olive oil, and took a deep whiff. That unmistakable earthy, skunky scent punched me in the face like a freight train of regret. I looked at the label, no label. Just a small piece of masking tape with the word oil written on it. I called my roommate immediately. Me. "Hey, please tell me the weed oil had a label on it."
No?
I thought we were living dangerously now. Me. "You absolute goblin." I fed it to my girlfriend's parents. Him. Ha ha ha, holy sh. Wait, are they okay? They were mostly okay, but extremely, profoundly high. I came back into the living room to find her mom trying to explain to a chair why it would never be as beautiful as a tree. Her brother was crying about how round his knees were. Emma was just vibing to the hum of the refrigerator. But her dad? Oh man, he was not doing well. He was sitting up now, staring at me like I'd just betrayed his entire bloodline. "You," he said, slowly, pointing at me like I was a war criminal. "You are the sauce master. You have shown me the crustless void. I don't know who I am anymore." Then he started laughing. Loudly. Maniacally. for 10 minutes straight. Then he cried. Then he asked if we had any Cheetos. I was mortified. I explained everything. Apologized profusely. They were too far gone to really care, and thankfully no one had a panic attack or called 911, which is honestly miraculous. They mostly just had a weird night and fell asleep by 9 p.m. like a bunch of stone toddlers. The next morning was tense. Her dad emerged from his room like a hungover wizard, walked right up to me in the kitchen while I was making coffee. I started to apologize again, but he raised a hand. "Son," he said, "that was the most terrifying night of my life." I conversed with a spider about the nature of time. I stood there, unsure what to say. But, he continued, "I also had the best pizza of my life.
So,
Just don't ever do that again." Later, I caught him Googling how to make weed oil on his tablet, so I think he forgave me. Emma and I are still together, somehow. Her mom sent me a text 2 days later that just said "Treeb chair," so I think we're good. Her brother has adopted the nickname Round Knees and won't explain it to his friends. But I'm banned from the kitchen next time we visit. And that oil? Yeah, I dumped it. This happened a couple of weeks ago, but I'm still dealing with the fallout, so now feels like a good time to vent. Buckle up, because this is the dumbest way I've ever nuked my own career. To set the scene, I work for a mid-sized marketing firm. You know the type. Open office layout, cold brew on tap, mandatory birthday parties, and everyone pretending to love brainstorming sessions. I'm in the creative department, mostly working on ad copy and campaign slogans, but I've always been a bit of the office clown. It's part of my brand. People expect me to crack jokes, do impressions, and generally lighten the mood during stressful days. My boss, Gary, is a 52-year-old man who wears golf shirts in winter and uses phrases like "circle back" and "let's put a pin in that." He's not a bad guy, just one of those execs who read too many management books in the early 2000s and never updated his personality software. Everyone kind of laughs behind his back because of how absurdly corporate he is. A couple of Fridays ago, we had our monthly all-hands Zoom call. These are always scheduled for 4 p.m., so no one pays attention. It's just a parade of department heads saying things like, "Q3 was a challenge, but we're optimistic about the road ahead." Blah, blah, blah. I usually mute myself, grab a drink, and play solitaire while pretending to be engaged. This particular Friday, though, I was feeling spicy. I just learned how to use one of those AI voice changers. One of my buddies showed me how it could mimic celebrities, or even your own voice with enough audio input. I'd been messing with it all week, recording snippets of Gary from past meetings and tuning it until it sounded eerily close. Not perfect, but close enough that if you weren't paying attention, you'd buy it. So, naturally, I made a fake Zoom account. Gary S., Executive Director, and used his profile picture, which was easy to pull from our intranet. My plan wasn't anything malicious. I just thought it'd be hilarious to pop in as Gary during the meeting and drop a few ridiculous lines before bailing. Something dumb like, "I've decided we're moving to a 100% standing desk policy," or "Casual Fridays are now Hawaiian shirt Fridays mandatory." Office meme material. I figured people would laugh, realize it was me, and we'd move on. Oh no. The meeting starts. Gary is, uncharacteristically, running late. Our COO is doing the introductions, and right as she's handing things over to Gary, I take my shot. Fake Gary enters the chat. I unmute. Voice changer on. "Good afternoon, team. Before we begin, I want to address a serious issue, the overuse of the word synergy. From now on, anyone caught using it will be required to donate $10 to the Office Bagel Fund." A few chuckles ripple through the Zoom squares. I keep going. I've also made a decision to replace our corporate mission statement with lyrics from Smash Mouth's All Star, because, frankly, it's more inspiring. More laughter. I'm killing it. Or so I think. Then I see a new square pop into the meeting. Real Gary. His face is blank. Like, totally devoid of emotion. He's muted, just watching. COO looks confused. Gary, are you there twice?" That's when the realization hits. The meeting had just started. He wasn't late. He was only momentarily offline. He caught the whole thing. I immediately bail. Log out. Rip the USB mic from my computer like that would somehow erase what just happened. My stomach sinks into the earth's mantle. Not 30 seconds later, I get a Slack from HR. Please join us in a private Zoom meeting. Now, I need you to understand something. I had no intention of humiliating him. I thought it would be a 2-minute prank. But the timing, the realism of the voice, and the fact that I never actually revealed it was me, it looked bad, like identity theft bad. I hop on the HR call. They're not laughing. Gary is there. Still no expression. I've never seen a man so calm and so deeply pissed off at the same time. He starts by saying, "So, you think it's funny to impersonate an executive during a company meeting?" I try to explain. HR doesn't care. They've already flagged it as a breach of professional conduct and impersonation of leadership. Apparently, some people in the Zoom thought Gary had lost his mind. One client was in the call. I had no idea, and actually emailed afterward to ask if we were rebranding as a comedy agency. It snowballed fast. By Monday morning, everyone knew it was me. The fake account was linked to my personal email, rookie mistake, and someone in IT apparently confirmed it. I was suspended pending review. People started treating me like I was radioactive. Some thought it was hilarious. Others were horrified. I even got a LinkedIn message from a recruiter saying, "Bold move, but I'm intrigued." In the end, I didn't get fired. Gary surprisingly advocated for a second chance, said it was misguided humor, and that I clearly had a future in creative work, if not in professionalism. HR gave me a final warning and mandatory ethics training, which is as soul-crushing as it sounds. I also had to write an apology email to the whole company, which is now the top result when you search my name on our intranet. So now I'm still employed, still writing copy, but permanently known as Deepfake Gary around the office. Someone taped a printed-out Smash Mouth lyrics sheet to my cubicle. One of the devs coded an internal Slack bot that fines you $10 fake if you say synergy. I can't even be mad. Moral of the story: if you're going to impersonate your boss, maybe don't do it on a recorded Zoom call with clients, execs, and HR in the audience. Or at least wait until they're definitely not in the room. Hey, friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. TIFU by accidentally sending a text to my ex, which led to a series of embarrassing, awkward, and ultimately hilarious events that I'll never live down. So, to give some context, I'm a 25-year-old guy who recently broke up with my girlfriend, Claire. It wasn't an ugly breakup, but it wasn't a clean one either. We had been dating for about 2 years, and things started getting a little strained toward the end. Neither of us cheated, but the emotional distance just grew, and we both knew the relationship was nearing its end. We decided to part ways amicably, or so I thought. Now, I know everyone always says they're going to stay friends after a breakup, but that's usually just a nice way of saying, "I'll try not to hate you," and, to be honest, I was still trying to get over her. Claire, on the other hand, seemed to handle it much better. She moved on pretty quickly, or at least that's what it looked like on social media. But I wasn't in a rush to be friends or keep in touch, and I mostly just tried to focus on myself and move forward. Fast forward about a month after the breakup. I had been out with some friends, and we were at a bar celebrating one of my buddy's birthdays. I was a few beers in and feeling good, but not completely hammered or anything. I was chatting with some people, having a good time, when I got an unexpected message on my phone. It was from Claire. Now, I have to be honest here, I had no idea why she was texting me. We hadn't spoken since the breakup, and I figured it was either something about a forgotten possession or just her checking in to see how I was doing. To my surprise, it was a simple message. "Hey, I saw this thing and thought of you. Thought you'd find it funny." I opened the message, and sure enough, it was a meme. One of those ridiculous, self-deprecating memes that's supposed to make you laugh at how awkward life can be. It was kind of funny, and I appreciated that she thought of me, but I didn't really know how to respond. I didn't want to be cold, but I also wasn't ready to dive back into any kind of conversation with her, especially with everything still fresh. So I did what I thought was the most neutral thing. I decided to send a casual response, something simple like, "Huh, yeah, that's pretty good." The problem? I had a few too many drinks at that point, and my judgment was clouded. As I typed the message, my mind wandered. It was like I couldn't stop myself from saying more. I started typing a longer reply, but my brain kept racing, so my fingers just typed what they felt was a good idea in the moment. Instead of stopping at, haha, that's pretty good, I ended up sending, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. I miss you, Claire. It's been hard without you. I realized what I had typed immediately after hitting send, and the cold, awful feeling of regret hit me like a ton of bricks. I sat there for a second, staring at my screen, unable to believe that I had just sent that to her. I wanted to throw my phone out the window, but it wasn't over. I didn't hear anything back from her immediately, and I thought maybe, just maybe, she didn't see the message yet. I stared at my phone, hoping for some kind of miracle, but then I saw the 3 little dots, the ones that mean the person is typing. Oh no. The 3 dots stopped, then started again. I was in complete and utter panic mode at this point, my heart racing. I thought to myself, there's no way she's going to reply to this with anything good. There's no way I can salvage this. When the reply finally came through, I opened it up with trembling hands, expecting to read something awkward, embarrassing, or downright crushing. Instead, it was an emoji. A single, solitary, crying laughing face emoji. I had no idea how to interpret that. Was she laughing at me? Was she mocking me? Was she crying because she felt bad for me? The uncertainty gnawed at me as I stared at the message, utterly confused. I needed clarity. So I panicked and sent a follow-up text. Wait, I didn't mean that. I meant it, but I didn't mean it like that. I was drunk and, just ignore that, please. The reply came almost immediately. No worries. I figured you were drunk. But I'll be honest, that emoji is more for the fact that you've been thinking about me like that after all this time.
Wow, really?
That's sweet, but also kind of funny. I read that message about 10 times. Was she laughing at me? Was she still interested? Could I salvage the situation? In the moment, I just wanted to curl up and die. But my drunk brain was still functioning, and somehow, I thought it would be a good idea to send one more message to explain myself further. So I typed, okay, let me try to make this right. What I meant was, I've been thinking a lot about our time together, and honestly, I didn't realize how much I appreciated you until now. Maybe we can talk about getting together soon. Oh God, did I really just send that? The response this time was immediate, and I almost didn't want to read it. But I did anyway, bracing myself for whatever disaster was about to unfold. You know what? I'm actually kind of flattered, but I think we're both better off keeping things where they are right now. I'm not mad at you or anything, but I'm just not in the same place anymore. And besides, I've got a date lined up for next weekend, so yeah, maybe just, let's keep it friendly from here on out. I was floored. The room started spinning, and I could feel the pit in my stomach drop. Of course, she was moving on. Of course, she was seeing someone else. Of course, I was still stuck here trying to figure out how I could get back something I had no right to ask for anymore. And that's how my night ended. I spent the rest of it nursing a beer and trying to forget about the mess I had just made. The worst part? The next day, Claire sent me a picture of a new meme. This time, it was an image of a dog with its head down, captioned, "When you text your ex while drunk and don't know how to fix it." At least she had a sense of humor about it. But still, I'll never live down the day I drunkenly poured my heart out to my ex and then made it even more awkward by desperately trying to unsend a message that had already been read. TLDR. Drunkenly texted my ex about missing her, sent a bunch of desperate follow-up texts trying to undo it, and got slapped with the harsh reality that she had moved on. At least she thought it was funny. TIFU by taking my mom's car to my first date and accidentally causing a huge scene that ruined the entire night. It started out like any typical Friday for me. I had just finished a long week of high school and my friend, Derek, had convinced me to ask this girl I had a huge crush on, Emma, out. We had been talking for a couple of weeks and she was super into me, or at least that's what I thought based on her texts and the way she smiled at me in class. So, when I finally worked up the nerve, I asked her to a casual dinner at this cozy little restaurant downtown. She said yes, and I was ecstatic. Now, here's the catch. I don't have a car. I know, I'm 17 and most people my age already have their driver's license and their own car, but my mom had always been kind of strict about driving. Plus, we lived in the city, so she never really felt the need to let me get one. So, when it came time to go on this date, I had no choice but to ask my mom if I could borrow her car. My mom's car was a 2007 Honda Civic, which, to be honest, was a bit of an eyesore. The exterior was a dull silver that had faded over the years, the tires were all different brands, don't ask me how that happened, and the interior smelled like a mix of stale coffee and old leather seats. But it was a car and it was available, so I didn't think twice. I picked up the keys from her, told her I'd be careful, and off I went. The dinner was set for 7 p.m., and I had an hour to get there. I was feeling pretty confident. I had on a nice button-up shirt and a pair of jeans that made me feel like I was ready to impress. I thought I'd be just fine, even though driving my mom's car wasn't the same as driving my friend's nicer car or even the family minivan. However, my confidence quickly started to fade when I hit the road. The car had this weird rattle when I accelerated, and the steering felt slightly off. But I figured it was just something I would have to deal with. I'm no car expert, but I knew enough to get by. I decided to focus on not messing up the date. I texted Emma that I was on my way and made sure to double-check the address for the restaurant. About 15 minutes into the drive, things took a turn. I was stopped at a red light when I heard a loud pop and then a strange grinding noise coming from underneath the car. At first, I thought it was just some old part of the car, but when the light turned green, I couldn't get the car to accelerate properly. The engine sputtered and stalled. It was like the car had just decided it wasn't going anywhere. I pulled over to the side of the road, heart racing. I tried restarting the car several times, but it just wouldn't budge. I was already running late, and now I was stuck in the middle of nowhere, with no idea what was going on. My first thought was to call my mom, but she was at work, and I didn't want to bother her. I couldn't exactly tell her I broke the car on my first date. I called Derek instead, who was pretty much useless. He told me to try to restart the car again, which I had already done about a dozen times. After hanging up with him, I decided to do what any desperate teenager would do in my situation. I called a tow truck. I didn't even know how to properly explain what was wrong with the car, but I hoped that the guy would know what he was doing. I had no other choice but to wait for him to show up. Time was ticking, and I realized that I was getting farther and farther from the restaurant. At this point, Emma had probably arrived and was wondering where I was. My stomach twisted into knots. I had messed up. I was starting to panic. Then, just as luck would have it, the tow truck driver arrived, and I could tell he was not impressed with my choice of vehicle. I had already given him the address for the restaurant, but when he saw the state of my mom's Civic, he raised an eyebrow and asked me how long it had been since I'd had the car checked. I didn't really know how to answer that. My mom had been driving it for years and it seemed fine to her, but I guess I never really thought to get it looked at. The driver hooked up the car and told me he'd take it to the shop. I had no choice but to accept his offer, though I was completely embarrassed. He said it would take about 20 minutes to get the car towed and for the repairs to begin. That was the final nail in the coffin for my date.
There was no way I was making it now.
I decided to send Emma a text. I tried to keep it casual, explaining that my car had broken down and I wouldn't be able to make it. But in my panic, I sent her the wrong text. Instead of saying, "Hey, the car broke down. I'm so sorry, I'll make it up to you," I accidentally sent, "Hey, the car broke down. I'm so sorry, I'll make it up to you, and by the way, my mom's car sucks." I realized what I had done immediately after hitting send. I went into full-blown panic mode. I couldn't unsend the message. I couldn't take back what I had just said. All I could do was stare at my phone, hoping she would just ignore it and not be too offended. About 10 minutes later, I got a response from Emma. It wasn't a "no problem" or "I hope everything's okay." It was a cold, dry, "Wow, that's rude." I felt like I'd been slapped across the face. That was the moment I realized I had totally blown it. I didn't even know how to respond. I tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. I texted her again, apologizing profusely and explaining that I was just frustrated, but the damage had been done. When the tow truck driver finally took my mom's car away to the shop, I decided to call it a night. I texted Derek to tell him everything had gone horribly wrong, and he just laughed. Apparently, he found it hilarious that I was stranded with no car and no date. To make matters worse, my mom was furious when I got home. Not only had I ruined my date, but now I was going to have to pay for the repairs on the car. She wasn't even that mad about the damage. It was mostly the fact that I hadn't told her I was going to take the car on a date in the first place. So, to sum it all up, I ruined my first date, insulted my mom's car, and ended up having to pay for the repairs. Needless to say, I didn't get a second date with Emma, and I learned a valuable lesson. Never take your mom's car on a date unless you're 100% sure it won't break down, and you're 100% sure you don't accidentally insult her car while you're at it. I'm still single, and now I'm saving up for a used car of my own. Hopefully, next time I'll have better luck. So this happened a few months ago, and I'm only just now able to laugh at it. I am 29, had been in a bit of a rut. I just moved to a new city for work, didn't know anyone, and was trying to meet people in a non-dating app kind of way. You know, like how people used to do it before the internet turned socializing into a swipe fest. A coworker suggested I join a group class or something. Seemed like good advice. I'd recently told a woman at the office that I'd totally been getting into plant-based eating. I had not. So when I saw a flyer for a vegan cooking workshop at a local community center, I took it as a sign. I signed up the same day, bought an apron with a beet pun on it, beat it, and showed up ready to saute my way into some hearts. That's where I met her. Let's call her Jade. Tall, tattooed, nose ring, the kind of effortlessly cool energy that makes you feel like a middle schooler who forgot their locker combo. She smiled at my apron and said, "Nice." Reader, I was gone. We ended up paired together to make some kind of lentil loaf, and we hit it off. Or, at least I thought we did. She laughed at my dumb jokes, made fun of my inability to distinguish between cumin and cinnamon, and invited me to a thing later that week. A thing? I asked. Yeah, she said. It's hard to explain. Just come. It's super chill. I should have asked more questions. Thursday night rolls around, and I show up at the address she texted me. It's not a house. It's not a bar. It's not a vegan pop-up. It's a compound, like actually gated with one of those buzzers you have to press. I thought maybe it was some kind of private club or art collective. I buzzed in. A man answered and asked, "Are you here for the gathering?" That should have been red flag number 1. But I was like, "Sure am." The gate opened. I walk into this courtyard filled with candles, people wearing loose earth-tone clothing, and this ambient flute music playing over speakers. Everyone is barefoot. I immediately felt overdressed and underprepared, but then Jade appeared, barefoot as well, and gave me a hug that smelled like patchouli and ginger. She handed me a small glass of what she called clarity tea and led me into a circular room where about 30 people sat in a giant spiral formation. There was chanting. There was a lot of clapping and humming. A woman with dreadlocks down to her waist and pupils the size of Saturn gave a speech about unshackling the meat mind. I thought maybe it was some immersive theater thing. Then the leader walked in. He was a man in his 50s with an impossibly smooth face and a flowing white tunic. He had the kind of voice that made you feel like you were being hypnotized by a jar of honey. Everyone called him Alandro. Alandro welcomed us to the fold. He said, "Tonight, we shed the toxins of our former lives and embrace the Eden within." Everyone nodded. I nodded. I had no idea what was happening. Then came the ritual of release. We were each handed a stone and asked to whisper our greatest burden into it. I whispered, "I sometimes pretend to like Radiohead so people think I'm deeper than I am." I don't think that's what they meant. We walked to a fire pit and threw our stones in one by one while saying, "Free the fold within." I was now 90% sure this was a cult, but I also didn't want to offend anyone, especially not Jade. Then Alandro approached me directly. "You're new," he said. "Yep." He took my hands in his. "Your aura is resisting." "Yeah, I've been moisturizing less lately." He didn't laugh. He closed his eyes and began humming into my forehead. It lasted a full minute. A full minute. I was just standing there, forehead to forehead with a man humming in D minor. I could feel the breath of at least 4 other people watching. After the humming, He asked if I would consider joining the inner fold, which, apparently, required a 48-hour silent retreat, fasting, and something called a cleansing elixir. I said, "That sounds intense," and he said, "Intensity reveals truth." I told Jade I needed to use the bathroom. She pointed to a yurt. I stepped inside and immediately tried to find an exit. No windows. No doors except the one I came in. Just a composting toilet and a poster of Alandra with the words, "He is because we are," underneath. I panicked. I opened the back flap of the yurt and squeezed through. Found myself behind the compound, facing a wooded area. I made a run for it. 10 minutes later, I'm sprinting barefoot through some suburban woods, beat apron flapping in the wind behind me, clutching my shoes, getting thwacked in the face with branches, and wondering how the hell I got here. I eventually found a road, flagged down a cyclist, and begged to use his phone. He gave me a look like I was either high or recently exorcised, but let me call a cab. I went home, showered for a comically long time, and blocked Jade's number. Next day at work, the woman I was originally trying to impress with the plant-based lie brought in leftover brisket and asked if I wanted some. I said yes, without hesitation, and silently vowed never again to lie about lentils for lust.
So yeah,
That's how I accidentally joined a cult. TIFU by accidentally attending the wrong funeral and becoming the guest of honor. It started off like any other awkward obligation. My coworker, Dave, had passed away unexpectedly. I wasn't particularly close to him, but we'd shared a cubicle wall for 3 years, and he was one of those guys who always asked if you wanted anything from the coffee shop run. Quiet, polite, a little awkward, just one of those people you don't realize you'll miss until they're not quietly existing in your peripheral vision anymore. So when our department got the info for his service, I felt like it was the right thing to go. It was across town at this small, nondescript funeral home I'd never been to, set for Saturday morning. No big deal, right? I should have known something was off when I pulled into the parking lot. There were way more people than I expected. Like, a lot more. I figured Dave had a big extended family, or maybe a whole social life none of us at work ever saw. Some people live quietly, after all. I parked in a field that had been opened up to accommodate overflow cars, already kind of overwhelmed. The place was busy, but not chaotic. People moved slowly, talking in hushed tones. I went inside, signed the guest book without looking too hard — this was my first mistake — and followed the flow into the main room where the service was being held. At the front was a large photo of an elderly black woman in a deep red church hat, smiling with radiant joy. I froze. Dave was a 42-year-old white dude who wore the same gray button-up shirt 3 times a week and once told me he thought mango was too spicy. This wasn't Dave's funeral. Panic bubbled up, and I took a step back, considering a swift and quiet exit. But before I could vanish into the safety of parking lot purgatory, a hand gently clasped my shoulder. "You must be Jeremiah's friend from work," a woman said. I blinked. Now listen, I am not Jeremiah. But in my panic, and in some deeply repressed part of my people-pleasing soul, I just nodded. She smiled warmly, her eyes glassy with grief, but grateful. "I'm so glad you could come. Mama always said it's the people you show up for who matter most." I said something like, "Of course," which is the most non-committal thing I could think of, and then suddenly I was being ushered into the pews. A man scooted aside to make room for me. Another man, about my age, gave me a fist bump and murmured, "Long time, bro."
I have never seen this man in my life.
Now I was stuck. The service began, and it was beautiful. The woman, Mama, I assumed, had clearly lived an incredible life. Stories poured out about her strength, her faith, her cooking, her ability to make anyone feel like family. I laughed. I cried. I clapped with everyone else when her granddaughter sang a rendition of "His Eye is on the Sparrow." That gave me chills. It was the best funeral I had ever been to, but it kept getting worse. At one point, the officiant said, "Now, we'd like to invite up anyone who wishes to say a few words about Mama. Family, friends, all are welcome." A few people went up, grandchildren, old neighbors, her pastor. And then, as silence settled and the moment hovered, someone next to me leaned over and whispered, "You should go up. Man,
You were there for the end.
it would mean a lot. I shook my head, panicked, but they just nodded encouragingly. Suddenly, the officiant was saying, looks like we have another beloved friend coming up. Let's hear it for him.
No. No.
But I was already halfway to the front. My legs had betrayed me. My brain was a scrambled mess of possible exit strategies, none of them good. I got to the podium. Microphone in front of me. A sea of morning eyes, kind and open and trusting. I started. Mama was one of a kind. That got some murmurs of agreement. I pressed forward like a man walking blindly into a hurricane. She made me feel like part of the family, even though I wasn't. More murmurs. Someone whispered, "Amen." I should have stopped there, but no. I panicked again and went full improv. I remember one night she made this peach cobbler that I have never eaten peach cobbler in my life. Literally made me cry. Like, I sat there at the table crying. And she said, "Baby, life is short. Always cry over good food and bad men." That line killed.
People laughed.
A woman shouted, "That's right." I was accidentally bringing the house down at a stranger's funeral. I finished with some vague comment about how we never lose the ones we love. We just carry them differently, and stepped down to a standing ovation. A man hugged me. A child asked if I was her cousin's cousin. I signed a commemorative guest quilt. After the service, I tried to slip away, but I got roped into a repast meal in the church basement. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, pound cake. It was a spiritual experience. I was given a to-go plate. I was given two. By the time I got back to my car, I had been added to a family group chat and told I was always welcome at the next reunion. When I got home, I checked the original email. Dave's funeral was next Saturday. I had not only crashed the wrong funeral, but I had pre-gamed the right one by giving a speech at a completely unrelated, deeply personal, and very intimate farewell for a woman I never knew. I considered ghosting entirely, never acknowledging any of it again. But that Sunday, I got a text from an unknown number. "Hey, this is Raina, Mama's granddaughter. Thank you again for your words yesterday. They meant so much. We were wondering, would you be willing to MC the family cookout this summer? We'd love to have you." I said yes, because at this point I think I might be in the will. This happened over the course of 3 insane days last month, and I'm still processing it all. For context, I'm a 32-year-old guy living in Detroit, working a boring tech job and minding my own damn business until my little sister, Ava, 26, calls me sobbing. Her ex, Kyle, who I always hated, had been harassing her for weeks after their breakup. This guy is the human equivalent of wet drywall. He cheated on her, lied constantly, and had the audacity to get possessive when she finally dumped his sorry ass. He started showing up to her work, leaving nasty messages, and even tried to run into her at our mom's house. She got a restraining order, but he kept testing the boundaries. So I did what any older brother with access to YouTube and poor judgment would do. I decided to scare the hell out of him. I remembered that Kyle was always low-key terrified of Russians. I don't even know why. He once said those guys don't blink while we were watching a John Wick movie. So I thought, what if I pretended to be a Russian mob guy who's dating Ava now? Something like, she has powerful friends now, energy. Bad idea number 1. I practiced a terrible accent, threw on a leather jacket, and borrowed my neighbor's matte black Dodge Charger. I looked like a bootleg villain from an early Fast and Furious movie. I texted Kyle from a burner app. "We need to talk. 8 p.m. Parking lot behind Denny's on 8 Mile. Come alone." He showed up. Oh boy, he actually showed up. I stayed in character the whole time. Called myself Dimitri. Told him I was very displeased with his behavior and that Ava was under my protection now. I made vague threats about what happens to men who don't listen in my country. Kyle was practically shaking. I think he peed a little. I left thinking I'd successfully terrified him into submission.
Victory.
Except 2 days later, I get a text on that burner phone. "We like your style. Meet us." Attached is an address in this sketchy industrial district. I should have thrown the phone into a river.
But no.
I was curious. And also stupid. Bad idea number 2. I show up, just intending to figure out what the hell is going on. Maybe it was a prank? Maybe Kyle was trying to scare me back? But when I got there, it was very real. A warehouse. 2 giant bald guys with necks thicker than my torso. One of them had a spiderweb tattoo crawling up his skull. They were speaking Russian. I tried to back out. I said, I think there's been a mistake. Spiderweb guy grabs my arm and says, Dmitri, you showed promise. You are now part of crew. I said I wasn't Dmitri, that it was just a character, a misunderstanding, but the dude laughed and slapped my back like I just told the funniest joke ever. We all play character, he says. Now you play this one. They brought me inside. There were crates, pallets, whiteboards, actual blueprints. I realized with stomach-dropping horror that these guys were running some kind of smuggling operation. Cigarettes, mostly, maybe some stolen electronics. I couldn't even focus. I just kept thinking, how is this happening? They handed me a burner phone, told me I'd be making deliveries, that I'd impressed Vadim with my initiative. I left the warehouse in a daze, got in my car, started hyperventilating. I didn't sleep that night. I kept waiting for someone to show up and test my loyalty, or something. Next day, I called the police. Bad idea number 3. I thought I'd explain the whole thing and they'd laugh and tell me to go home. Nope. I ended up talking to a detective who took it very seriously. Apparently, these guys had been under investigation for months and they were building a RICO case. He asked me if I'd wear a wire. Now look, I am not brave. I've never even punched someone before. I once called in sick to avoid a minor confrontation with a coworker. But I agreed, mostly out of guilt and panic. So 48 hours later, I'm back in the warehouse, wire taped to my chest, trying not to sweat through my shirt. They had me do a test run, drive a crate to another location across town, and hand it off to a guy named Misha. The whole time, I'm praying I don't die. Luckily, the handoff went fine. Misha was friendly. We talked about vodka and hockey like 2 actors stuck in a poorly written Cold War drama. I dropped the crate, which I later learned contained untaxed European cigarettes, and drove away. The cops pulled me over 10 minutes later and took the footage. They told me to lay low, and they'd be in touch. 3 weeks go by. Radio silence. I figure maybe the operation got shut down. I almost convinced myself I imagined the whole thing. Then Vadim texts me. Vadim, the boss. He says he wants to meet me. I send the message straight to the detective. He tells me to go. They'll be monitoring. I'm wired up again, this time feeling like my heart is going to explode. Vadim was nothing like I expected. Thin, well-dressed, British accent, weirdly. Had this cold politeness that made my blood run cold. He asks me if I'm loyal. I nod like my life depends on it. And then he smiles, says he likes me, offers me a full-time position. My soul leaves my body. I mumble something about needing to think about it. He nods, tells me to take my time. The cops swoop in that night. Massive bust. The warehouse, the drop spots, the whole operation dismantled. Apparently, they'd been tracking the ring for a year, and my accidental infiltration gave them the break they needed. I was free to go, case closed. So now I'm back to my normal life. Sort of. I deleted every burner app. Threw out the leather jacket. My sister doesn't even know the full story. I just told her Kyle got scared straight. Speaking of Kyle, he moved to Colorado last week. I still get texts sometimes. From unknown numbers. Just one emoji. A bear. I don't respond. I just close my blinds and pretend none of it ever happened. But sometimes, late at night, I still slip into the accent. Just to see if I still got it. Is no problem, comrade. God help me. So this happened last weekend, and I still haven't decided if my relationship will survive it. It all started when I had the brilliant idea to surprise my girlfriend, Sarah, with a spontaneous weekend camping trip. She's always saying how much she misses nature and how she wants more unplugged time, so I thought I'd score major boyfriend points by packing up gear, grabbing her favorite snacks, and driving us to a secluded state park without telling her where we were going. Surprise adventure, right? What could go wrong? Spoiler, everything. Friday afternoon, I showed up at her apartment, told her to pack a bag for 2 nights and some hiking, and whisked her away. She was actually really excited at first. The drive was great, music, jokes, snacks, vibes. We got to the park around 6 p.m., just in time for sunset. The campsite I picked was deep in the woods, barely marked, super off the beaten path. I thought that was part of the charm. We set up the tent, got a fire going, and everything felt cozy. She was smiling, leaning into me, roasting marshmallows, and I was thinking, man, I nailed this. Then, around 11 p.m., things started getting weird. We heard rustling in the woods. Not the cute squirrel kind of rustling, but like many feet. Many little feet. Sarah got spooked and asked if it was coyotes. I told her not to worry and shined my flashlight out into the trees. We didn't see anything, but the sound stopped. An hour later, I woke up to a soft thump outside the tent. Then another. And then the unmistakable sound of a zipper. I bolted upright. The zipper on the tent's outer flap was moving. Something was unzipping our tent. I grabbed my flashlight and flung the flap open, expecting a bear or, I don't know, a rogue psychopath. What I got instead was a raccoon, standing on its hind legs, holding a glow stick. Behind it were, no exaggeration, at least 6 more raccoons, all staring at me like I just interrupted a meeting. And every single one of them had a glow stick, like they'd looted a rave or were about to summon a forest demon. Sarah screamed. I screamed. The raccoons screamed. Well, they made a weird chirping noise and ran. Now here's the thing. I had left a big Ziploc bag of trail mix and some protein bars just inside the tent door. One of those bastards had smelled it, figured out the zipper, and apparently called in the crew for a snack raid. We moved the food into the car, calmed down a bit, and tried to go back to sleep. Around 3 a.m., we heard this deep, echoing honk. Like a foghorn, but angry. Sarah whispered, "What the hell was that?" I peeked out and caught sight of what I can only describe as a monstrous goose, the size of a medium dog, standing at the edge of our campsite, staring at us. Now, for context, Sarah has a thing about birds. Not a fear, exactly, but she says they're judgmental. I thought she was joking until this goose took 2 steps forward, flared its wings, and let out a guttural hunk that shook our bones. We stayed perfectly still, hoping it would lose interest. Instead, it strutted up to our tent and began pecking at one of the stakes. Then it bit the tent. Then it bit me. Through the fabric. I yelled, flailed, and accidentally kicked Sarah in the shin. She screamed, and the goose lost its mind, flapping, honking, charging at the tent like it was a medieval battering ram. In a panic, I unzipped the tent and ran. I expected Sarah to follow, but she was still untangling herself from the sleeping bag. I circled back, flapping my arms at the goose, which only enraged him more. It turned on me and started chasing me around the campfire in what I can only describe as a horrifying Benny Hill sequence. This is when the raccoons returned, glow stick still in hand. I swear to God, they came back to watch. Eventually, we locked ourselves in the car, defeated. Sarah was furious. She had a bruise on her leg from my accidental kick, her hoodie was torn from when she tried to escape the tent, and she informed me that I was never allowed to plan surprises again. We tried to sleep in the car. Around 5 a.m., headlights flooded the campsite. A park ranger knocked on the window. Apparently, someone had reported strange lights and animal noises. Probably the raccoon cult, glow from the forest. When the ranger asked what happened, I just said, "Goose attack." He nodded solemnly, like this wasn't his first rodeo, and offered to escort us back to the main lot. So we drove home at 6 a.m., exhausted, bruised, and slightly traumatized. The tent is shredded. My dignity is in a raccoon rave circle somewhere. Sarah hasn't broken up with me, but she's been calling the trip the Woodland Hunger Games and told all her friends. Apparently, it's hilarious when it's not happening to you. So, I, 29M, work in a relatively normal office job. It's a tech-adjacent company. Nothing sexy, nothing crazy. Think software solutions for mid-sized logistics firms. Beige carpet. Lots of Keurig coffee pods. Endless Zoom calls. You get the picture. Anyway, I have this coworker, let's call him Brad, who's always doing side gigs. One week it's flipping NFTs, next week he's got a podcast, then he's trying to drop a line of novelty socks. A real grind set type of guy. He's nice enough though, and we sometimes eat lunch together in the break room while making fun of whatever absurd acronym HR is pushing that week. One afternoon, Brad approaches me and goes, "Hey man, weird ask, but I need someone to help me out with a side project. Just some headshots for a card game I'm prototyping. Totally chill. I just need someone with a friendly face for some placeholder cards while I pitch it to a couple of friends." I ask what kind of game it is, and he says, "Just a funny little party game, like Cards Against Humanity, but more visual. It's not going anywhere. I just need to fill space until I get a real designer." I didn't think too hard about it. He said placeholder at least 3 times. Plus, I owed him one for covering for me during an awkward call with upper management. So I say sure. The photo shoot happens in a conference room after hours. He brings in this very legit-looking camera, some weird props, a rubber chicken, a fake mustache, a bright pink blazer, and a big white backdrop. I do a bunch of faces, happy, shocked, disgusted, fake crying, fake laughing, all of it. We mess around for about 45 minutes, and he thanks me with a Starbucks gift card. Easy win. Fast forward 3 months. I've completely forgotten about it. Then one Thursday, I'm at our monthly team building meeting. These things are mandatory. The kind where they make you play trivia or build marshmallow towers. This time, the organizer, who's either an evil genius or completely clueless, says, "This month, we're doing something new. A fun card game I discovered at a local shop. It's called Corporate Kinks." I'm immediately on high alert. A few coworkers laugh nervously. The organizer waves her hands and says, No, it's not that bad. It's like satire. Totally work safe. Mostly, it's all about the weird stuff people do in offices. Great icebreaker." She pulls out a box. A sleek black and white design. Right there on the cover, wearing a pink blazer, a horrified expression, and holding a stapler to my forehead, is me.
Me.
My actual face. I'm frozen. One of my coworkers, Jesse, squints and goes, "Hey, is that you?" I stammer. I think that might be a coincidence. But it's too late. Someone opens the box and pulls out a stack of glossy, professional-looking cards. Each card has a photo, asterisk my asterisk face, and a scenario. Let me give you a taste of what these cards say. Just found out the intern is your boss's foot model. React. Got caught using the office printer for fan fiction. Defend your actions. Stapled your tie to your crotch during a board meeting. Convince HR it was a power move. Your coworker thinks you're flirting. You were just asking for more creamer. Now it's a company-wide seminar. My face is on every single one of them.
People start laughing.
One of the engineers is in tears laughing at a card that says corporate BDSM, you're the sub-accountant. Meanwhile, I am sitting there, trying to disappear into my swivel chair, feeling the slow, rising panic of 1,000 dumb decisions clicking into place like Tetris blocks. I corner Brad later that day and go, "Dude, what the hell?" And he goes, "Bro, I didn't think it would blow up like this. I only printed 50 sets for a tabletop expo, and people loved it. I got picked up by this novelty game distributor that specializes in quirky corporate gifts. I meant to tell you, I swear, but it all happened so fast. You're kind of a meme now."
A meme.
He shows me the website. Not only is my face on the box, it's all over the promo material. There's even a gif of me fake crying with the caption, "When HR finds your OnlyFans but promotes you anyway." At this point, I'm spiraling. I ask him if he at least anonymized me, and he says, "I used your first name, but like, your legal first name. Not what people call you here. So you're probably good." For the record, I have a very distinctive name. Think Thaddeus or Percival. Ain't no one gonna miss that. The worst part? HR buys a box. They think it's progressive. I get called in for a casual sit-down. Not a disciplinary meeting, just a check-in. They want to make sure I feel safe and supported as my image circulates across regional offices. Apparently, one of our satellite teams in Portland used my face in a training session about recognizing inappropriate behavior in digital spaces. A slide titled, "Would you trust this man with your passwords?" Spoiler, the answer was no. Brad, meanwhile, is thriving. He's working on an expansion pack. He asked me to do just a few more photos. This time with wigs. I told him he could legally eat his own game. Now, every time someone new joins the company, they eventually find out. I'll be in a meeting and someone will double take. Or they'll DM me with a blurry photo of a card and go, "Is this you?" And I have to respond like some kind of tragic celebrity. Yeah, that's me. Card number 17. The worst was when a client recognized me. I was doing a demo call and she just bursts out laughing mid-pitch and says, Sorry, it's just your face looks so familiar. Are you the stapler guy?"
Yes.
I am the stapler guy. I've since negotiated with Brad to give me a cut of the profits. It's not much, but it helps soften the blow of having my face next to the phrase mutually assured HR. Moral of the story, never do a favor for a guy with a ring light and no shame. Or, at least, ask to sign a damn release form. And if you ever see a card game with a man in a pink blazer holding a rubber chicken and crying into a coffee mug, please know that somewhere, I am dying inside. TIFU by agreeing to go on a mystery trip with my coworkers and accidentally ending up in a criminal operation. So this happened last month, and I'm still trying to emotionally detox from it. For context, I work at a mid-sized marketing firm that's recently been trying really hard to seem more hip. Think Beer Fridays, open plan offices, and those mandatory fun events that everyone silently dreads but pretends to enjoy. Enter Mystery Mondays. Mystery Mondays are the latest corporate invention by our overly enthusiastic HR manager, Kara, who read one too many LinkedIn posts and decided to make it her mission to connect employees with the world beyond their desks. Each Monday, we get a vague invite to some team-building adventure, ranging from escape rooms to goat yoga. I avoided most of them with carefully crafted excuses, dentist appointments, family emergencies, accidentally scheduling conflicting Zoom calls. But this time, I got roped in. Kara cornered me in the kitchen by the coffee machine, beaming like she'd just solved world hunger.
Ben.
You have to come on this one. It's going to be epic. No hints. Just be ready at 9 a.m. Wear casual clothes and bring an open mind. I tried to say I had a dentist appointment again, but she interrupted with a guilt trip tsunami. You've missed every event this quarter. Don't you want to bond with your team? We need you, Ben. Foolishly, I caved. Fast forward to Monday. I show up at the office in jeans and a hoodie, clutching a coffee and the kind of existential dread usually reserved for jury duty. Kara is bouncing off the walls, herding 14 of us into a sketchy, white shuttle van that literally had no company logo. Just a dude named Vic driving. Red flag number 1. We drive for an hour. No one knows where we're going. Kara refuses to answer questions, just keeps saying, "Trust the journey." Red flag number 2. Finally, we pull up to what looks like an abandoned strip mall somewhere way outside the city. The windows are boarded, the sign above says, Unity Center in faded letters, and there's literally one other car in the lot, a rusted-out pickup truck that looks like it's seen war. At this point, several coworkers are openly whispering things like, "Are we being kidnapped?" And this is how horror movies start. But Kara is undeterred, leading us into the building like Moses into the wilderness. Inside, it's weird. Like, unnervingly clean. Too clean. Like someone just wiped down a crime scene. The walls are lined with chairs, and there's a single table in the center with a large duffel bag on it. Vic, the driver, disappears into a side room and doesn't come back. We're just standing there, awkward and confused, until this bald guy in sunglasses walks in. Indoors. Sunglasses indoors. Red flag number 3. He introduces himself as Reggie and tells us we're about to embark on a transformational life exercise. Before we can ask questions, he unzips the duffel bag and starts pulling out, no joke, black ski masks and burner phones.
Dead.
Silence. We all think it's a joke, like a weird escape room twist. Reggie starts handing out the masks and phones, explaining how, today, you will learn to break free from societal chains and reclaim your agency by simulating real-world consequences. He uses phrases like radical detachment and ego annihilation. Meanwhile, Kara is just nodding like she's drinking the Kool-Aid with a straw.
Me?
I'm looking for the nearest exit. But before anyone can bail, Reggie claps his hands and says, "Time to assign roles." Then he tells us we'll be splitting into 3 teams. One team will be infiltrators, 1 handlers, and 1 lookouts. The plan? Simulate a heist scenario where we liberate resources from a pre-designated target he literally would not say steal, and bring them back to the Unity Center. At this point, a few coworkers are nervously laughing. One guy, Chris from accounting, mutters, "We signed a waiver, right?" Everyone looks at each other. No one remembers signing anything. Reggie pulls out a folded paper map and a key. "Your target is located in a commercial district 10 minutes from here. You'll enter through the back, take only what's on the list, and rendezvous at the drop zone. No phones. No names. Trust the process." Suddenly, it hits me. This isn't a simulation. I raise my hand like a goddamn schoolboy and say, "Hey, is this legal?" Reggie just smiles and says, "Legality is a construct. Fear is your jailer." Which is exactly the kind of thing someone says right before you end up on Dateline. At this point, people are getting visibly uncomfortable. One girl, Priya, backs toward the door. Reggie blocks it and says, "There's no growth without discomfort." That's when Dan, the quiet IT guy, loses it. He pushes past Reggie, yanks open the door, and bolts outside. Reggie doesn't chase him. He just shrugs and says, "One soul chose the coward's path." That was enough for the rest of us. Chaos erupts. People are grabbing their bags, stumbling over chairs, demanding to leave. Kara, freaking Kara, starts crying and saying, "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I hired them off Craigslist. They said it was immersive." I'm like, "Lady, you almost had us commit a felony for a team-building exercise." We finally make it back outside, where Dan is already calling an Uber from behind a dumpster. Vic is nowhere to be found. Half of us pile into 2 Ubers. The rest wait for a ride from friends or significant others. No one speaks. I get back home and immediately Google Unity Center Heist Workshop. Nothing. It's like it never existed. The place was scrubbed clean. The next day at work, the HR office is empty. Kara's desk has been cleared out. We get an all-company email from the CEO saying Kara has transitioned into new opportunities and that HR events will be on pause, while the company reevaluates its extracurricular programs. Everyone who went on the trip kind of silently agrees to never speak of it again. Chris from accounting whispers to me, "I still have the burner phone. I'm afraid to throw it away." I don't blame him. Mine's in a shoebox under my bed. It buzzed once 2 nights ago. No caller ID. I didn't answer. I've since taken a new job. Fully remote. No HR retreats. No mystery vans. Never again. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.